Good evening, everyone. Wikipedia publication brings warm greetings to every one of you. Today we are here to celebrate something special. Now, when we talk about celebrations, we don't celebrate with strangers, but we celebrate with our near and dear ones. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're all very near and dear to the author here today. And we're here to celebrate the launch of the 5th book of our very own Sindilong Uzakam, Teacher Man. So, with very warm, I extend a very warm welcome to every one of you who have taken the time to be here with us and with the author today. We have a very brief program planned for today. We'll straight away go ahead. We will first hear a review of the book, Teacher Man, from Pendanganla S. Longcomer. Pendanganla is currently working as an assistant professor in Fazal Ali College. She is also an alumnus of St. Stephen's College, New Delhi, and currently pursuing her PhD from the Center of English Studies, JNU. So I please welcome her.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's so lovely to see all of you. Okay, so it's an absolute honor and a privilege, of course, for me to give a review of Sindilong Uzakam's latest book, Teacher Man. I cannot wholeheartedly say it's a pleasure because it's always a daunting task to not only review the work of a good friend and a mentor, but also to review the work of someone who has already made their name in the literary grades of contemporary Naga writers in English. Nevertheless, it's an absolute honor, and I'm grateful because it is a good opportunity to actually look back, assess, and celebrate a very impressive line of publications by the author in the last decade. So for those of us who know the author, his allure as author and publisher started way back in 2009. So perhaps not many of you might be acquainted with the story, but for those of you who know, perhaps some of you would actually remember a monthly magazine called Fingerprints. Does anyone remember? I think some do, right? So that the author would self-publish, and it had a good run for a while. And what I distinctly remember from the Fingerprints era is how his readers would anxiously wait for the next issue. So we were just having a talk about this yesterday, and he said that it is because people just wanted to read the Confessions Corner, which was such a 2010s thing. Okay, I do agree, but at the same time, I also feel that, the anticipation of the readers was exactly because he knew what the readers wanted. He knew his demography very well, and he knew exactly how to deliver it. So a decade and 3 years later, he has 5 books to his name, and a quick skimming of the hundreds of reviews of his book online and elsewhere would not fail to mention how relatable an author he is, how relatable the characters he creates and the situation he creates are for the readers. And perhaps the greatest asset of any successful fictional writer is the relatability factor. And Sindilong seems to effortlessly succeed in doing this book after book, and Teacher Man is no exception. So the Italian writer and critic Castiglione would call it sprezzatura. So it simply translates to as the art of performing a very difficult task with so much grace that it looks effortless. And so does Sindilong with all the works that he has written, with all the publications that he has done so far. Not only that, Sindilong has also proved himself to be a literary chameleon of sorts by hopping across genres, forms, and voices. Okay, so now coming to Teacher Man. When I first saw the draft of the book, I was flummoxed by the title, to say the least. The unassuming title to me was very ambiguous and intriguing. And it is only when the last pages of the book were turned that it dawned on me that not all superheroes wear capes, just like Shisa. And Shisa was the perfect protagonist, the perfect figure of the subversion of what we usually think of superheroes to be. An ordinary human with bare minimum resources, but yet capable of achieving spectacular feats, and thus truly deserving of the titular name, and thus making him relatable to us mere humans more than any superhero possibly could. I have also noticed how Cindy Long as a writer have this tendency to pick up what would be considered as rejects, as failures, as dregs of society conventionally, and redeem them in his novels. So the most famous and the most popular protagonist being Moloti from Dreams and Chaos, and Campus Blues, and in Teacher Man, Shisa. So there is something very heartwarming and empathetic in the way the characters come alive to the readers. Now coming to Teacher Man, I'm not going to divulge too much information, and I'm not going to do a synopsis of the plot because it is for us readers to read and find out. So I do hope that if you have not read it yet, you'll pick it up and read it. Of course, I can promise you that there are many subplots, twists, and turns, as is expected of him. But what I'll do today is to attempt to simply highlight what the novel does in terms of its thematic concerns, in terms of its literary merits, and then end with some remarks. So now, Teacher Man. Teacher Man, the novel, is your quintessential coming-of-age story, laced and sprinkled with a heavy dose of realism, where Shisa, the protagonist, takes on a journey to discover his purpose and meaning in life. Set against the contemporary Naga society with its dilapidated education systems, healthcare systems, and almost non-existent infrastructure in general, and with the reliable Tata Sumo and the dusty highway, as characters opening the novel, any reader by now would go, this is a novel that's most probably set in Nagaland. That does it for us, right? So now the protagonist's journey in the novel, I strongly feel, would speak to the contemporary Naga youths, trapped in a system that seems to work only against them, against their aspirations and dreams. So the novel, in a lot of ways, is a much needed clarion call, attached to utopian, no doubt, but one that is surely within our reach. Now, Shisa's redemptive and endearing quality as the protagonist lies in his response to what he sees at Sangtor Village. So now, for those of you who have not read the novel, Sangtor Village is where everything unfolds. And perhaps reluctantly and unwillingly at first, but he sure does stay, almost impulsively, unlike his colleagues who decide to leave and for good reason. The reluctant and the aimless young man who seems to have failed at everything else, especially according to the parameters of success in a society, not only stays, but he's also able to sustain in his efforts and consciously decides to call Sangtor his home. So that makes him a very beloved protagonist, in my opinion. So the closing line of the novel reads, "It was home now." And this sort of banishes any doubts that readers might have of the protagonist's intentions and plans of moving away. As much as Sangtor is his home, by the end of the novel, we as readers get the sense that Sangtor has also accepted him as their own. Again, much like the author's previous works, Teacher Man offers a very close look at contemporary Naga society, and especially at the mundane and the everyday. A reader who has absolutely no idea of the context of Naga society, upon reading the novel would conjure a very good idea of the Naga way of life, including its material culture. The vivid sketches of Sangtor village and the adjoining towns that comprise of the novel's universe is one of stark juxtapositions that are so well known to all of us. Juxtaposition of the old and the new, the traditional and the modern, both in terms of material culture and worldviews that have entangled us all in its throes. Now, coming to the whole idea of what Northeast literature actually is. In academia, there are discussions of how Northeast, the whole idea of Northeast is one that, the idea of Northeast is one that is a homogeneous identity, an identity that has been enforced on us, and an identity that writers from the northeastern states have often consciously resisted. And in this context, what Teacher Man also does as a novel, I feel, is, other than offering a scathing social critic, which has become so iconic of Sintilong Usakam's writings, it's also, the novel also talks about how, even within the Naga society, there are complex layers in terms of the political, in terms of the cultural, economic, and social that needs to be explored, distinguished, acknowledged, and represented correctly. Teacher Man, therefore, adds depth and dimension to counter the dominant narratives that attempts to homogenize, diminish, and suppress the many voices that we are and the many lived experiences that we are. The inherent clarity and lucidity in terms of what the novel aspires to achieve in a language that is accessible even to the layperson makes it a very interesting read and a page turner. So Sintilong in many ways have become the people's writer because of the relatability factor that I mentioned earlier, but also because of his use of accessible language that is accessible even to the layperson. I think, and he does it with so much sprezzatura again, without diluting the content or without diluting the gravitas of the context. I think George Orwell, I think all of us know him, one of the most prolific writers and a social critic himself, would certainly approve of Sintilong's writing style, I feel. Because Orwell does, in his 6 rules of writing, would advise writers to value simplicity and fresh perspectives over complex language and redundant jargons. And if you have been a reader, if you have been a part of Sintilong's fandom, I'm sure the language that he uses is extremely accessible. You give it to a teenager, you give it to a school kid, they'll still understand it, and you give it to an older person, and they would also understand the novel. So in terms of literary merit, the author is consistent in the way he conjures up fresh metaphors, and I want all of us as readers to pay special attention to it as you read the novel. And his use of metaphors and imageries gives them a distinct, if I may use the term, a distinct local taste to it. Okay, and by this I mean the use of the colloquial and the everyday language as spoken by the Nagas, which, in turn adds elements of authenticity, adds elements of distinctiveness and particularity, which is very, very important. So why I'm talking about all these things is also because the politics of language has to be taken into consideration while assessing any literary work, given the uneasy position of English as a language in our nation, in our societies, whether we like it or not, that has to be acknowledged. So therefore, the question of how does one write as a post-colonial in a language that is considered a colonial imposition, but has also become a necessity, but has also become a part and parcel of the everyday, certainly needs to be explored. Of course, that is for another day, and this would require an entire research paper, but perhaps the oversimplified answer would be to unapologetically use the colloquial and the common as the author does. In other words, using the accessible, using the colloquial, the everyday. Now, as far as the character writing goes, Shisa is as relatable as he is well-rounded and developed. The author is known for his on-point, eagle-eyed observations. If you are friends with the author, you would certainly have noticed that by now. And he artfully paints them on the pages of his books. And he does it so well that many a times we cry, laugh, feel the hurt and joy that the characters are going through. And at times, and you'll see, as is in the last chapter of Teacher Man, we feel the rush and the urgency of the situation that you don't even realize that you weren't breathing until the character is actually breathing. So that's the thing. That's the kind of engaging. That's the kind of atmosphere. That's the kind of environment that he's able to create. So now just a note of caution for everyone present here is that be very careful around him, lest you wish to be the next caricature in any upcoming books that you might have. Those eyes are very photographic. All right. Okay, so in conclusion, finally, let me just add that academic writings are often criticized for being inaccessible to the layman. And as an academic practitioner myself, I agree, and I'm part of that problem. I can see some people smiling, so they know. Okay, so therefore, it is writings like this that bridges the gap between the ivory tower of academia and the lay, that bridges the gap between theory and praxis, and here lies the usefulness of authors like Scintilong. So as an author, he is so much more than the armchair philosophers that plague our society at great, because again, anyone who knows him would know that the kind of things that he actually do in real life add weight and gravitas to the fiction he is writing. So if you have any kind of, if you engage in a conversation with him, perhaps some of the things that he might have encountered could be stranger than fiction itself. So if something has to be said about the novel at all, it is its undying optimism and a gnawing sense of would have, should have, could have. Had we had more people with a mission like Shisa in the real world, we are exasperated at the thought of the lack of potential teacher man, engineer woman, doctor girl, nurse boy, and so forth. It is here that I would remind us readers that what is eluted in reality is grasped vividly in fiction. Fiction allows us that space, and fiction gave us catharsis. It inspires because there seems to be light at the end of the tunnel. It also frustrates because of wasted potential that seems to be so rampant today in our society. And as readers, we get the sense that there is an insurmountable mountain that Shisa and his compatriots and all of us have to scale. But we're also left with the assurance that everything will be just all right, and somehow we will all triumph. Now I would like to end with a quote by Kafka, the French modernist writer. He writes, and I quote, "I think we ought to read only the kind of books that wound or stab us. If the book we're reading doesn't wake us up with a blow to the head, what are we reading for? We need books that affect us like a disaster, that grieve us deeply, like the death of someone we loved more than ourselves, like being banished in the forests far from everyone, like a suicide. A book must be the axe for the frozen sea within us. A book must be the axe for the frozen sea within us." So Teacher Man, for me, in many ways, has been that book. And may Teacher Man stab you, wound you, crack open the frozen sea within all of us. But it also inspire us readers to be better. Wishing Teacher Man and its author the biggest success yet, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Aaron. That was a very well-researched review and very systematically presented. Thank you once again. I'm sure everyone is excited to actually know and read about Shisa and what Teacher Man actually contains. So we can all do that only if the book is launched today. So we are very honored and also blessed to have with us our Deputy Commissioner, Shri Sashank Pratap Singh. He will take the honor of launching the book. So I request Sir and also the author to kindly come up on stage. After the release of the book, we will also have the dedicatory prayer from our beloved Reverend here, Reverend Takatumchin. He's the former principal of Fazal College and also the former principal of Clark Theological College, and also the president of NELIST, Northeast Alliance for Leadership and Social Transformation, right, sir? Yeah, so he will say the dedicatory prayer, but before that, we will have the launching. So I request sir and the author to kindly come up on stage.
Congratulations.
I would like to congratulate Mr. Sandy Long Ozakam for producing another book, which I hope will be, if not, will be much better than the previous publications. Of course, I have not read all of his books, but I have seen some of the dramas in YouTube that were based on his writings. And these are very thought-provoking presentations. And I believe that even this book will inspire many people to think, hopefully, more deeply about our Northeast India. Of course, I have not seen. From what I hear from the Penang, and also about the situation in Nagaland. Now the teacher man has come. Perhaps a teacher woman should also come. Okay, thank you very much for giving me this time. Let me say a word of prayer. Loving Heavenly Father, we give you all the thanks and glory for giving us opportunities to serve you through writing and through different activities. We want to thank you at this time for the life and ministry of Mr. Sandy Long. He has produced another book, and as we release this book today, Lord, we pray that you will bless the book, the readers, and also the distribution of this book. This book should reach many hands, many lives, and many families. And therefore, this is our prayer, that as we distribute this book, you will bless us in the work of the distribution. And this is our prayer, that you will bless all those people who will be reading this book as well. We want to thank you for the life and ministry of Sandy Long and his family. And as they continue, apart from his work as an officer in the government of Nagaland, as he continues in this work of writing, Lord, grant him good health, grant him long life, so that his work will become a source of blessing for our people, even for the days to come. With thanksgiving, we pray this prayer of dedication of this book, and pray that, Lord, you will bless each one of us present here this afternoon, and also the people who are not here, will be blessed through the reading of this book. For we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. I would like to request our Deputy Commissioner to kindly say a few words about the author. I'm sure with you all working together, I think that you will have some things to say about him which we don't know. So I now give the time to our Deputy Commissioner for a few words.
So thank you so much. But first of all, let me start with the statement that there is nothing what I can say about Sentilung which we are not aware about it. It's not a satire, it's a real thing. I know Sentilung in my official capacity and to some extent in personal capacity. And it is a very short career for me in Nagaland, but he's one among the most sincere, honest officer I have ever came across till my career in Nagaland in last 5 to 6 years. There shall not be any doubt about it. And he is like my man to go. If I have anything in office, I will just tell him and he will do. So this is what interaction I have about Sentilung. This is the 4th book of Sentilung. I have all the books, but I have read none of them, to be very frank. And since for the launching of the 4th book, I have been invited, so I thought I should go through a few pages. So I could finish only 30-35%, only 60-70 pages of his 4th book, that is Teacher Man. And I'm not much into the book reviews and all. Of course, when I was in JNU, so as part of my assignment, I used to do reviews. But since that time I was preparing for UPSC also, it was all cut-paste, those book reviews. So I would not make any book reviews, but of course I have some commentaries, 1 or 2 commentaries about the book. This book only, The Teacher Man. So let me start with one analogy. I hope all of you must have heard about a place in UP, Banaras. So there is a proverb about Banaras, that Banaras is situated on the Trishul of Lord Shiva. What does it mean? It means Banaras is not part of the earth. So whatever changes are taking place in all over the world, somehow Banaras is untouched with all those positive changes. So if I compare the place Banaras with Nagaland, I have I respect all the religious sentiments and all. And since the book is about satire, I would also make a satire. I believe it is in a good taste, but if somebody finds it bad taste, kindly pardon me. So if something is not changing Banaras, it doesn't mean Lord Shiva is responsible. So for Nagaland, somehow believe that Nagaland is based on the Jesus cross. Somehow it's not part of the earth. And whatever changes are taking place throughout the world, it's not taking place in Nagaland. Or if at all it's changing with a very slow pace. And majority of time, it going backwards. So this book, The Teacher Man, is a very honest and sincere effort from Sri Sentilung Uzukum to inspire people to bring changes in a bit speedy manner through a fiction. So that was the first commentary. Now let us come back to the second commentary, that is fiction. I'm not much into fiction. As I claim to myself that I'm a very sincere academician, though I could not complete my PhD. So, but still I claim that I was sincere when I was in JNU. So I'm not very a fictional sort of person. I'm more interested in this Plato versus Aristotle, Hegel versus Marx, Gandhi versus Ambedkar, and all. But when I was in academy, Labasna, so during an informal brainstorming session over a couple of drinks with my friends, so I made this statement that I'm not much into fiction. One of my batchmates told me, Shashank, there is nothing as such fiction. You cannot imagine anything which is not related to the reality. You just can't imagine anything. You tell me a single thing the scientist or anybody has invented, and it's not related to the reality, the world. So let me tell you, the book Teacher Man is not a fiction. It's a hard reality. One of my friends in JNU, when we were doing presentation and all, he presented R.K. Lakshman as the greatest social scientist of India. Through his cartoons, in a very humorous manner, he used to portray the socio-political realities of India. So this book, Teacher Man, in a satirical way, portraying the harsh realities as a society we are facing, we are experiencing. In the initial few pages, I could also relate with this book during my initial few years in Nagaland. When I landed in Nagaland, 2017, and when I traveled from Dimapur to Kohima, the all dusty roads from open gypsy, and I was staying in the commission guest house during my probation year. So from that Monkhola junction to PHQ headquarter road, another satire, it was an all-weather bad road. During dry season, it was all dusty. During rainy season, it was like a pond. So everybody can relate the road situation, how the protagonists think in initial pages in the book. Since I could not read the entire book, his perspective about the village and the school and his mandate might have changed. But then in initial pages, when he was very reluctant to visit, and all through the journey, whatever he faced, he was conveying to his mother. So this all of the harsh reality is not about we can blame somebody or only one party or government or system. It's we who build system. So we all are responsible for this state of sorry affairs. Let me tell you harsh reality as per my own understanding. We all are responsible for this sorry state of affairs. We cannot blame to somebody else. It's a democracy. We are all part of the system. So I think I have missed my point. So this book is not a fiction. It's a harsh reality. I invite all of you to go through the book. You inspire, you motivate, encourage other people also to go through this book. And if find interesting, go through the other 3 books also of the author. So, and if the 4 books can bring small changes, I believe this program or the sincere and honest effort of the author, Shri Shantil Guzkam, shall be successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. The 5th book of the author, not the 4th. I guess you did not read the rest, that's why you lost count. So it's the 5th book of the author. The more I hear about the book, the more I want to read about it, and I'm sure you're all feeling the same. Yeah, so we will now have a conversation with the author. We have with us Miss Tritishri Brodoroy. I was just thinking the author decided to, put in the program everyone from JNU today because I don't know if that's conscious or not, but Miss Tridi is also an alumnus of St. Stephen College and also a PhD scholar from JNU. She's currently she's from Guwahati, Assam, and she's currently a Mahatma Gandhi National Fellow with the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and posted in Mogokcho. So we are very lucky to have her here today. So we'll have a conversation with the author, with Ms. Triti. So I request you both. And also, if you do have anything to ask the author, you can start thinking about the questions.
Thank you, Lima, for that introduction. I have the opportunity and an immense honor to be in conversation with the author of Teacher Man, Sentilong Ozakam. I'm sure all of us in this room know about the author, but for anyone who is maybe living under the rock and doesn't know who Sentilong Ozakam is, let me try and do justice in introducing him. Sentilong Ozakam is, as many of us know, a man of very many words, right? He is a civil servant, he is a motivational speaker, he is also a screenwriter in Nagaland, and his previous works include Dreams and Chaos, Campus Blues, Sincerely Yours, The Case of Longti Village. These are some of his works. And a few of his works have also been adapted into web series. Teacher Man is his fourth novel. It's his fifth book, but it's his fourth novel. Over the past year that I've gotten to know Sir Sinti, what I've learned about him is that his true life's purpose is in the selfless service of others. Among the many things that he does, he's an administrator, he is a writer, and he also teaches students. But among all these things, he truly believes in serving others, right? And so much of him about serving others we can see in this book. So I'm sure he's heard me say this before, but I'll say and share it with you nonetheless. And he's not the one to take too many compliments. He would usually deflect it with humor. So in one of the many conversations that I've had with Sir Sinti, what he said was, you know, we as individuals, we cannot single-handedly change the world. We cannot single-handedly change the world, right? Otherwise, in the world, there would be no misery. There would be no poverty. There would be no hunger, right? What we can start by doing is just doing something for our communities, doing something for a group of people, right? Or doing something for even just a family. And even if you don't have the means and resource to do that, do something for just one person, and that will change the entire world for that one person. So that is the essence of this man. So without further ado, let me welcome the author of Teacher Man, Sentilong Ozakam. So welcome. It is an absolute honor to be talking to you today. I would first like to start by stating that this is Sir's fourth novel, right? And it is his third novel in a span of 3 years. He's written Dreams and Chaos in 2020, The Case of Longti Village in 2021, and here comes Teacher Man in 2022. And we also know he's an administrator, right? And you teach as well. So the first question on everybody's minds is, where do you get the time to write?
Okay, thank you so much everyone for coming. Yes, so the reason why I get time to write is, despite serving in the administration and other stuff, is because I'm very lazy. My mother knows this, my family knows this. I don't do any stuff at home. Like from washing to cleaning, everything is taken care of by others. And it's not like I can't do. It's like I can't do. I won't do, and I just can't do stuffs that I am a person with very limited talent. So all I can do is tell stories. That's it. I can sit for hours telling stories, but I can't peel potatoes or wash clothes I'm trying, but I just can't. So another thing is, fortunately, I wake up very early in the morning. So I wake up by 4:30 in the morning. After I got married, my wife wakes up at 4. So again, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and then I go to office at 5. From 5 a.m. to 10, I have nothing to do except read or write or maybe sleep. I return from office at 5. I sleep at 10. So from 5 to 10, again, I have another 5 hours. So every day, I have 10 hours to dispose. So what I'm doing is every morning, I'm just investing like half an hour or 1 hour in reading and writing. So I do this continuously, and over the period of 6 months, I just realized that a novel can be done. Yeah. Yeah, is that okay?
So, no dedication or drive, sir. Just using hours is what you do.
Okay, so that since you asked from where I get the time, that's it. But then regarding the inspiration and everything, I think my inspiration comes from my family. My mother is very good storyteller. She can conjure stories out of thin air. She might be telling the wrong stories, the right stories. We can never find out whether she is lying or not because she is a master storyteller. And so I learned the basics of storytelling, storytelling 101 from my parents. And I am also a keen observer of people. Some people have accused me of being staring at them or being rude or being, weird. But then, like sometimes I have this weird habit of observing people and situations. And as I said earlier, I have this urge to tell stories. So whether it's in the form of movies or radio or YouTube or through books, I just want to tell stories. And I believe that I was born since I can't do anything else, so I have to at least try to be the best at what I can do. So yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So when we first came to know about the novel, when I first came to know that Teacher Man was launching, what struck me was first the title of it, Teacher Man. Teacher is somebody we know that is associated with the profession of teaching. And you've associated that with the word man. It could have been anything else. So would you like to tell us a little bit about the title of the book and also about if you had other titles that were in the running and how did you zero down on Teacher Man?
Okay. As a writer, let me tell you, finding the perfect title is very difficult. And it's like finding the right title for your book. I feel it is sometimes like a husband going for shopping with his wife to a departmental store. So I'm learning things after marriage. So sometimes as soon as you walk into the store, you get the clothes or you get the things that you're looking for. And then you don't spend time. This is exactly what you had in mind before you stepped into the store. You got it. Other times, most often, you circle the store for 5 times, 6 times, you still don't get what you're looking for. And eventually settle for something which is not exactly what you had in mind, but since you did not find the thing that you were looking for, you come out of this departmental store after purchasing that. For me, I have struggled with this with my other books, but for Teacher Man, as soon as I started writing the book, the title came to me that this is going to be the title, and fortunately, I didn't have to think of any other titles. And why Teacher Man? Obviously, teacher, because the protagonist, she's a teacher and he is a man, so Teacher Man. But apart from that, just like our friend Aaron, he said, we all know, and so there are so many teachers in this room, and we know that, like she said, not all superheroes wear capes. Some, not all, some teach. So my way of taking the title is, so Shisha is the teacher man of Sangtor village, just like Bruce Wayne is Batman of Gotham City. So if we can have Superman or Batman or Iron Man, why not teacher man?
Okay, that's nice. Now, when you put it that way, it makes more sense. And for all of us who are thinking about the title, thank you for that explanation. In the beginning of the book, you write that during the summer of 2020, when the entire country was under a lockdown, you received a phone call from your friend Tiakamzak Iyer, who is the director of Dreams Unlimited, and he phoned you with a story in mind. And this book is a result of the conversation that you had with him. And you also write that you finished this book in 3 months. Yes? And then could you just tell us, after the title, a little bit about the book and its background, and what was going on in your mind when you were writing the book after having the conversation?
Okay, so yeah, like she said, I received a call from my friend, and it was lockdown. He had nothing to do, so he started watching web series in Amazon Prime and Netflix, and he came upon a show called Panchayat. It is an Amazon Prime net series. It is based in a village called Fulira in Uttar Pradesh, so UP. So he said, this is the web series that you should watch, and I want to make a movie like this in the interior, somewhere interior of Nagaland, and you have to write the screenplay. So this novel was born out of that conversation. The thing was, 2020 was a weird year. It was a lockdown, and for some of you, you had nothing to do. For people like us who were working with the disaster management in the district administration, life was hell. So we went to office at 8 in the morning. We came back like around 1:32 in the morning. So we were on the field for like 18 hours for almost a whole year. And I was put under a lot of stress. Stress not from, in Moguchung, stress not from the office, stress from outside the office, if you know what I mean. Anyway, so I was under a lot of stress. And early, I woke up at around 4:35, and I had to go to office by 7, 8. So within these 2 hours, I had to find something to relieve my stress. And after we had this conversation, I started writing this book in my laptop. And then I realized that every morning as I sat down for like half an hour, 1 hour every day, every morning, it was relieving my stress. I was finding comfort in the story. I was finding joy and happiness in the world that I was creating. And so very quickly, I was able to finish within 3 months. Yeah.
Okay. One of the running themes in your book is the philosophy of Maurice Schwartz.
Yes.
He is a sociology professor, and most of us, I'm sure, at some point in our lives do ponder upon life, as in, why is it that we are put on this earth? What is the purpose, right? What is our calling? Apart from the things that we do in our daily lives, like, what is it that we are meant to do, right? So I would like to quote from the book, where Maurice says that, many people walk around with a meaningless life, always half asleep and chasing the wrong things. But the only way to live a meaningful life is to devote yourselves to loving others, devote ourselves to the community around us, and creating something that gives purpose. And one of my absolute favorite is when Maurice says that you will never learn to live unless you learn to die. So I would like to ask you, sir, having been a student of philosophy yourself, what is the meaning and purpose of life?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I remember our deputy commissioner. We were having acting like philosophers, and I remember once discussing about this, about the meaning and purpose of life. And if I'm not mistaken, sir, we both agreed that for an agnostic or for an atheist who doesn't believe in the afterlife, the very question of the meaning of life is meaningless. At best, they can say that the meaning of life is to perform your duties. That's it. So this question has bothered so many thinkers and philosophers over the ages. But I genuinely feel that we men, we are existential human beings, and we are not only physical being, but we are a spiritual being as well. And unless you put the Creator in the center of this question doesn't make sense. So, if we are asking the meaning and purpose of life, that's a big question, but once again, it is very difficult for an agnostic or an atheist to answer this question. But for a believer who believes that he is a creation and there is a creator, then to answer this becomes a little easier. So there is a vacuum inside all of us. Some people pretend that life is okay, you are enjoying, but there is a vacuum inside all of us. We are all constantly searching for purpose, for identity, for meaning in life. No one can deny this. You might not be aware that you are searching for this, but it will manifest through your words, through your actions, through your conduct in society. So, thank you, sir. So what we do is the vacuum in our soul. Many people, we try to fill it with power, with pleasure, with possession, with popularity, with pleasure, all the peace. Yeah. But the thing is, you can't find meaning and purpose in life through salary or success or status or sex. You find it only through service and sacrifice. Yeah, so in the year 29 or 10, Sir Roy is here. He is my English teacher, and when I was in school, he's a good mentor of mine. And I remember having a lot of conversation with him over this. He's a devout Hindu. I have preached the gospel to him many times unsuccessfully. He has told me that upper caste Hindus don't convert. Please don't try. But nevertheless, yeah, we have discussed this. And he said to me way back in 2010 that there are only two things that gives him meaning in life. And I was very intrigued by it. I said, sir, what is it? He said, even if it's the Bible or the Gita, I'm sure he said that it teaches us two things. First is selfless service towards humanity, and the second is creativity. So if you practice selfless service towards humanity and creativity, that is where you get the meaning and purpose of life. That is what he said, and I have been trying to imbibe this philosophy over the past many years. I would like to end a quote by the artist Pablo Picasso. He said, on meaning and purpose, he said something that is beautiful. He said, the meaning of life is to find your gift. And the purpose of life is to give it away. So I think that perfectly sums up what I am trying to say. Yeah, thank you.
Can you repeat that, sir?
I don't know whether I can remember it, but yeah, he said on meaning and purpose. He said the meaning of life is to find your gift, the gift that God has given to you, whether it's teaching or preaching or dancing or researching or, no, I'm paraphrasing since you asked. So the meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to give this gift away in the service of others, of course. Yeah.
Well, that was deep, right? Very deep and thought-provoking. Wow. Let me ask you a question that usually women get asked, okay? Women, when they are working in an area where it is male-dominated, they get asked, how do you carve your space in this area where it's male-dominated? Why do you think most fiction writers in Nagaland are mostly women? And how do you carve out a space for yourself in that area?
Did you give the question to her? Or? Wow. So, why are most fiction writers, you mean Naga writings in English, right? I think that's true because I've never read a novel written by a Naga male author. I don't recall. My like 2090s, early 2000. They're taking time. That means like there might be, but then, like, yeah, there was a Lota Kai. Yeah, I mean.
I'm
2000
saying majority.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
sure there are men, but
Yeah,
mostly.
there are very few.
Yeah.
So, okay, one way to answer this is if you ask this question to anyone, they might say that, okay, look, women have been oppressed, they have been subjugated for so many generations, and they have been denied space, in the public sphere. Now they might say, look, they have been denied all this, so maybe fiction gives them an opportunity to express their resentment or maybe create an alternate universe in the fictional world where things are okay. Yeah, that might be a good answer, but I'm thinking women have been subjugated or oppressed in all cultures. So a better answer might be, I'm thinking along the lines of our culture. Yeah. So if you look into our culture, you will see that the duty of a male was to protect the village. So we are expecting physical traits, and responsibilities with the male. So if you study, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you study oral tradition or stuff like that into the past, you will notice that poetry or plays was considered a male genre. It was considered a male trait. Whereas, because it was believed that indulging in fancy and imagination was considered weakness. And weakness is not supposed to be in a man who is supposed to protect the village. So indulging in fancy and imagination was always considered a feminine genre. So maybe that might be the reason why we had so many women writers in English. And yeah, but I think we are catching up, the male folks.
You are leading, sir, in that. So I'm sure you're inspiring so many. Talking about fiction, we have seen a mushrooming of writers, fiction writers in Nagaland, fiction books that have come up. Why do you think that is? And also, the writings in the past have mostly dealt with topics that are related to either the historicity of the region. They are topics which are related to insurgency. But your writings are mostly based on contemporary social issues, right? So do you want to write in the future on topics related to the things that you don't write now? And writing about social issues, is it a conscious decision for you?
Okay, that's like 3 or 4 questions put in one.
2, sir.
Okay. Yeah, where do I begin with? So yes, I've not written any fiction or any work based on insurgency or folklore, or I think it is because I did not experience firsthand of the things that happened in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s. So I grew up in the 90s. By 1997, 8, 9, it was ceasefire, and then I belong to the generation where where gunshots were not heard, maybe during the early 90s. So I can say that I now write for the living audience, not the dead audience. So that is why I am more attuned towards this. Coming back to the mushrooming of writers and Nagaland, it is true, and yes. If you look at the newspapers, like there is one person or the other every week releasing a poetry book or a fiction book or some book or the other. And it is encouraging to say that, there is something happening in the literary sphere. But I also feel that most of them are writing or publishing the works too early. Because people, like young budding aspiring writers, they also send the manuscripts to my mail and they ask me about it. I also patiently read their manuscripts and I give them my advice. I tell them, why don't you shelve this manuscript for 6 months? At the end of 6 months, you take it out and read it again. And if you're happy with your manuscript, shelve it again for another 6 months. That means you are not growing. So, but most of them don't listen. So, yeah. So, okay. Regarding this, I was thinking the other day, even for me, 2010, I published Campus Blues. 2 years after I published this, I got depressed because it was a horrible novel, and I regretted for publishing it. I was like, why nobody stopped me from doing this? Because I knew it had no literary merit. It was like a junk food. You enjoy while reading it, but after the end of the book, there's nothing for you. Something like that. Nah? So 2010, then I published my next book only in 2017. It's 7 years. Between these 7 years, I read a lot, and then I started, writing. I actually wrote 2 novels between this phase, but I did not publish them because I didn't want to embarrass myself. It was only in the year 2017 that I was losing hope, and I started writing some short stories. And our friend Aaron, I said, this is not good for publishing. She said, they are good. Maybe she was trying to encourage me, or I don't know, but she said it was good. And then I take her word as a gospel. So I said, okay, if she is saying it is good, then it must be good. So I published that. After that, I've been trying to improve every day.
Which one is that, sir?
Sincerely Yours.
Sincerely
Yeah,
Yours.
so now, coming back to this, in church, in Naga Christian Church today, the pulpit is often used for self-promotion and not Christ promotion. And many pulpits, whether you're preaching or singing or dancing or performing choreography or reading the Bible, more often it is not glorifying God. You are trying to gain popularity through the pulpit. So this is a phenomenon that you will find in Nagaland. Now I'm using this to explain. Now, literature is art, and genuine artists they worship art. Now the question is, do you want to promote yourself or do you want to promote art? So this is a question that needs to be taken very seriously, because genuine artists, they respect art, they worship art, they would not do anything like try to become famous or popular in the name of art. So that I think that's something that needs some more deliberation. Okay, am I missing another question? Yes,
No, mushrooming of writers
Okay.
and yes, that's done. So many people look up to you and your writing, and they are fans of yours, and they want to read you every time you publish a book. They always, they want to get the first copies and all. We want to know, while you were growing up, what kind of literature were you exposed to, and who are some of your favorite authors, including Naga authors?
Okay, very quickly, you won't believe this, but growing up in life, I had nothing to read. My parents did not read books, they did not read newspapers, and then we lived in the 90s in Alampang Ward, no libraries, nothing, no bookstores, and I was not exposed to literature at all. I did not have uncles or aunties who would give me books. The only literature we had at home was my mother's horoscope book, a small book. She would read it religiously, like Gemini. So she would read Gemini, you will win the lottery today, or something like that. So, yeah, I would read the book very religiously because that was the only thing that was available at home. And I was interested in reading stories, so I read my English textbooks like from the beginning to the end, and then from beginning to the end. After that, when I got bored of reading my English textbooks, I started reading my sister's textbooks, and that is how I grew up. So, sadly, I was exposed to literature only when I was about to graduate. I never studied out from this town, so that's why sometimes I wish, what if I had, been exposed to literature from school days. Today I would have been writing better prose or better fiction. But nevertheless, I am trying. Better late than never. And what was the second thing?
No, this is it. I'm just
Have you
wondering.
read author something
Yes,
like
yes,
that?
okay.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I love reading the works of Murakami, and then Khalid Hosseini, and then I also enjoyed some of the books of Mitch Albom and G.D. Salinger, and a few of them. And for Nakar writers, there are lots of them, but I wouldn't say Tamsila or Isirin Creed, they are great, but the current generation, if we are to expect a literary masterpiece from Nagaland tomorrow, I'm putting my money on Imisinla Jamir and Avino Kiri.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So, like, you didn't have any exposure to literature till you were in college. I mean, and after that, you went on, and this is, your fifth book and your fourth novel you've written. That is amazing. So, like, when I was reading the book and I finished it, and then I came across certain metaphors. Your metaphors are so fresh. How do you come about it? If you could just tell us quickly, how do you come about the metaphors that you use in this book?
Okay, I think metaphors are very important for writers, and it is very difficult for prose writers, especially, to come up with fresh metaphors. Like, searching for fresh metaphors is like a fisherman, or you can see a diver, like searching for rare pearls in the bottom of the ocean floor. It's hard work, and most of the time, you don't get it. But the day you find one, you wear it around your neck, and you run to the marketplace in search of the finest, like, pearl merchant to get a good price for it. So we do this, and so, like, as prose writers, we have to avoid using dead metaphors. They are metaphors which have been overused and eventually, doesn't add any beauty or freshness to the prose, right? So, but finding fresh metaphors, very difficult. But one thing I do for me is I apply the method of personification, meaning whatever I'm looking at in my home, in office, I try to imagine that everything around me is a human being. They are thinking, they are talking, and I imagine if they were able to think or do, what would they say, right? So, that is how I carry about. There might be like a few of the metaphors I've employed. If you found them striking, then I'm happy.
Yes, especially the one which compares the dog, like limping in like a dog. What was
Okay,
yeah.
that is earlier part of the, like an animal seeking a private place to die.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I limped to the apartment. So this happened in 2020. I lost a dog. I had two dogs, and I lost one of them. One of them was saved by Dr. M. Tilong. I don't know whether he's here. He's here, yes. He's the finest veterinary doctor, I don't know, in Northeast and Southeast Asia. Anyway, but I lost the other dog because, not because of him, but after I lost the dog only, I went in search of him so I could save the other one. But then, one morning, the dog was missing. And then we were searching everywhere, and we couldn't find it. And my little sister, he found it in a place where nobody would have even imagined to search, somewhere in a storeroom. So I was like remembering this situation as I wrote this. So like
That's
an
nice.
animal, he was seeking a private place to die.
Yeah.
So the protagonist after that happened though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when you write, we know we write on like experience and all, but how much of your fiction is autobiographical?
I won't lie and say there's no autobiographical elements. I think if a writer says that there are no autobiographical elements, he or she will be lying. So a lot of the works, a lot of the characters are based on someone or the other. For instance, I'll just mention a few of them. This book, inspired from so many places, but it's the problem of proxy teachers in Nagaland. And what if, something happens? And as you can see, somewhere around 2018-19, I think Sir Shanavas, he became the principal director of education. He started, strengthening the system. And then I was thinking, there are so many proxy teachers in Kohima, in Dimapur, in Bukukchong. What if they are now to go to the village after following the government order? What would happen? So, something. And most of the characters in the book, for instance, there is a lady doctor. who appears in the middle of the book, she's inspired by a friend of mine. All her life, she has been posted in the interiors. Tubu, Changlangsu, Munyakshu, she's now in Nuklak. She's been serving like dutifully for the past many years. So many characters like that, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Just quickly, sir, like we know of proxy teachers in Nagaland. We know how much of it till what extent do we keep blaming the system? Till what extent do we keep saying, this is because of the various governments that come in? We know how to build roads. We know how to build schools. But why is it that as a civilization, we are not being able to do the bare minimum of providing education to our youth?
Okay, see, we tend to think like that, but I don't think civilization works like that. Because if we study civilization, it's not about me trying to help my neighbor. It's never like that in civilization. It's me trying to gain control of my neighbor. It's me trying to take advantage of my neighbor. Civilization is not about helping one tribe helping another tribe. It's never like that. It's always wars, violence, and one religion trying to finish another religion, one race trying to finish another race. So humanity by nature is greedy. We are selfish, right? So that's one thing. Another thing is, for me, we can blame, especially in the Naga context, I don't think we can blame anyone. We cannot blame anyone but yourself. So it is said that the condition of the present world, we can say it like it's not, the world suffers not because of the violence of bad people, but because of the silence of good people. Yeah, something like that. And even if we look our leaders, when we think of education and other things like that, see, in a society, in a community, the basic, the grassroots are education, health, sanitation. We start with this. Once these foundations are strong, the other things take care of themselves. But if you look at the things that are happening in our villages today, if you are a minister or a leader or whatever, or you are a village leader, you will never ponder upon improving sanitation or education or health, but you would be very interested in building a magnificent village gate, a magnificent community building, a magnificent church. Spend a lot of money in that, but then, I don't know, it doesn't make sense, but that is how it is.
They always spend money on things that you can see, like roads you can see, buildings you can see. But education, health, you cannot see unless it reaches your doorstep. So that is why I think also you would want to do something that people can see. And then you take the back seat for the others like sanitation, education, and healthcare. The next question that I want to ask you, sir, is based on a few people that I've talked with and I've interacted with who've read this book and who've gotten the chance to read the book in their PDF versions, and it is a question on popular demand. We have seen that you have dedicated this book to the love of your life, who is now your wife, the lovely Senti Renla. She's here with us this evening. So we, the readers, would love to know if there is any forthcoming story or even just a character that is based on or inspired by your love story that is coming soon.
I'm sure it will come in the future. It will be a magnum opus or something like that. But as of now, no. My point is, I'm not writing anything based on art because I feel that relationships are personal and, maybe let's see in the future. But right now, I want to write about other people's stories first before I write my own.
Okay. Before I go on to the last and final question, I open the floor for questions. So if anybody in the audience has questions, now is the time and the opportunity to speak with the author. Come on, guys. It's the Sentilong Azukam is here. Come on, anybody? Yes, please. Yeah. Do you want the mic?
Hello. Okay. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. A huge fan of Sir Sendilong. I mean, my question has been covered by your last question. It's not that I'm a feminist, but then when we look at your the recent books, the novel's title, The Teacher's Man, the protagonist is a male, right? It's a guy. I mean, it's a man. But then you have clarified that. And when I look at all your works, like Sincerely Yours is a collection of anecdote, but then the rest, all the protagonists are men. So in the future, like, are you going to add, like, not based on your wife maybe, but then are you going to add a female protagonist to your story? That's what I wanted to know. Though it's the same thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be very challenging because for a male writer to develop a female character, I think it'd be very challenging. But I think it would be very interesting. It would be a challenge for me to, maybe with the help of my wife here, now that she is my companion, maybe that is something that I've never thought of, but then maybe that is not a bad idea. Yeah.
Any more questions? Oh, this is not working. Any more? We'll wait a little while if anybody wants to ask any questions.
By the way, your teacher man, the protagonist, is he portrayed as a change agent? Since I haven't read the book, can you believe that teacher can be a change agent in society?
Sir, yes, I believe that teachers can act as a change agent in society, but I also believe that teachers can't change the entire society. So I always believe that, and I was sharing this, in fact, with some of my teacher friends last week that who are working as principals or working in various schools, and they're saying that it's very difficult to teach the present generation, especially after post-COVID and things like that. And it's very challenging to be a teacher, sometimes very toxic and very problematic. And then I keep telling them that, see, we can't change the entire world, like you mentioned earlier. But as a teacher, if you just focus on, person, if you focus on individual, you can't change the world, the entire world. You can't change the entire society, but you can definitely change the world of one person at a time. So I believe that it's very, but at the same time, that teacher should be a person who has responded to the call of teaching. Otherwise, it just won't make sense. And I believe, sir, you have responded to the call of teaching, and I can count, my fingers are not enough to count the number of people whose lives have been transformed through your teaching, especially in Mokokchung town.
Any more questions?
Okay.
Yes. So yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So now you finished, I think, 4 books in last 3 years.
Yeah.
Very good speed you're writing with, but now things have changed. Like Superman, Batman, teacher, but now you're a married man. Now, are you confident that you have enough time to write books with that speed? Because now you have to spend hours and hours on phone calls and all. Now you have to resolve those issues, the problems in your life which were never there before. So, what we should expect from you now onward?
Sir, if you give me leave for 2 months, I will come up with another book anyway. Yes, sir, I think that's something that I've never thought of. But again, that reality, I believe it will come after we have kids. Maybe. I'm also thinking I'm not very fond of babies. I might be in the future, but right now, like babies, they don't like me. I love them, but they somehow they don't want to come anyway. So, but the good thing is time management as well as the daily source of inspiration from where we are getting ideas from. So with her together, I believe that now that I'm writing one book per year, perhaps 2 books per year is also possible, because like I said, I was waking up at 4:35. Now she's waking up before 4, so I have to wake up along with her. I have now more time, and maybe spending time with her together will get more inspiration and perhaps more guidance. Earlier I was alone. I had to but now she is there to support me, to encourage me. In fact, I've started already the next book. So I believe that it should be ready very soon. Let's hope. Yeah.
That's great news for us readers.
Can I just ask?
Yes, please, sir. Please go ahead.
Can I just ask one very simple question?
Yes, sir.
When we hear the mention of some names, some personalities, we expect what we are to get from him or from her. Now, when people start reading your books, there is a kind of expectation, and it's the other way around as well. In the sense, from such and such speakers or writers, we didn't expect this. So when we see the mention of your name in programs, or hear that you will be taking the stage to, talk to young people and all that, I see a lot of people thronging to listen to you, and they expect something from you. Because whether they are right or wrong, they have a definition of sing-along in their mind. Now, when we go on reading your books, the kind of person as you are, as people know, one of the aspects or one of the defining characteristics of yourself is that you are a staunch theist. Now, when we listen to you, or especially when it comes to writing, do you think in future or in the near future, people will be expecting something from your product, an element of theism that you have founded your life on?
Yeah, got it, sir. Yeah, got it. So, yeah, very profound question, and people have asked me this, and one of the reasons, I should say, why I have not moved in that direction is because I am not educated in that genre. So I don't have the authority to, go into that sphere. But that is just my problem. But then again, this dichotomy, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I genuinely believe this dichotomy is coming because Christianity that is practiced in Nagaland, not only in Nagaland, but even Western Christianity as a whole, I think we have been influenced so much by Greek philosophy. Because not by Jewish philosophy, because for the Greeks, they have a strong dichotomy between the body and the spirit. For them, the spirit is what it matters. That's why they say that philosophers should be king, And the body, they treat it not important. So the spiritual realm is important, the bodily realm is not important. That is what the Greek philosophers say. But for Jewish philosophers, both the spirit and the body are equally important. Now we have borrowed this idea, and this philosophy is seeped into our Christianity so much that today there is a strict dichotomy between the spiritual and the physical, even in Naga Christianity today. That is why you will find like people who are indulged in mental works, spiritual works, they are put at the top of the social ladder. Those people who are engaged in physical works, they are both at the bottom of the social ladder. That's why we have so much respect for missionaries, pastors and teachers and people who are working in offices, because they are working with their mind, not with their hands. But we don't attribute the same respect to a sweeper or to someone who is engaging in manual labor. So now, for people, I now understand that whether it is because our God, if you're talking about the God of the Bible, our God is a very creative God. And it is said that we have been created in His image. So part of our image bears that creativity. So we have to be creative, all of us, in our own levels. So my point is, there is nothing like sacred and secular. It is just our production. It is just a man-made thing. People say, oh, you're from secular, you're from secular. There's nothing like that. Whatever you do in the name of God is sacred. Even if you're preaching from the pulpit, if you're not doing it for the glory of God, then that is a secular thing. So even writing this book or performing in art or performing a painting doesn't necessarily saying like Jesus said that, God has said that, but then this is a projection of God's creativity. So I take it in that way. I had a similar conversation just a few hours back with a friend of mine. She said, why are people rushing to prayer centers? And why in prayer centers eating rice is not allowed, but Maggie is allowed? As if Jesus is against rice, but Jesus is fond of junk foods. Yeah. But then, so I was saying that, every place is a prayer center for the Christian, be it the Par or the Protel. Every center should be a prayer center because the Bible says pray without ceasing. It means pray all the time. If necessary, use words. Yeah.
That's very well put, yeah, sir. So last question is that what would you say or what advice would you give to anybody who is a budding or an aspiring writer and who looks up to you? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, so harsh advice, but then there's no other way. Writing is a very lonely job. Writing is a very difficult job. So the advice is read. Spend at least, 3-4 hours more than that reading literature, getting exposed to various writers, and don't be in a hurry to publish your works. No? It's like writing a book is like, a gardener or a farmer or a winemaker, making wine. You cannot be impatient with wines. The more time you devote to it, the better the wine gets. So this is the advice that I want to give to budding, aspiring writers. Read more, write more, engage more. But, like I said, if you are happy with what you've written right now, give it some time. Maybe 6 months, 1 year, 3 months, read it again. If you're still happy, you are not growing. You are not growing. So, read, grow, leave the manuscript for an amount of time, until and unless you're not happy with it. So, always look for growth. Yeah.
Well, with that, we come to an end of this conversation, and it has been delightful, sir, sitting with you. And we wish you all the very best for your future projects, and we can't wait to read more of your work. I would just like to end in the words of our friend Arun. You're truly the voice of the angsty generation trying to find their way in the world. Thank you, sir. Thank you all for joining.
I think that was more than 45 minutes, but that just passed without us knowing about it. Some very interesting questions put and also more interesting answers. Thank you, Triti, also to the author. I'm just assuming that, when Cindy Long goes about motivating people in the next months and all that, I'm just getting a feeling that he'll motivate people to get married or something, because I've been hearing a lot about the love of his life and his married life. Anyway, before we wrap up this program, I'd like to just, for the record, give some information about Bukitvidya Publications. Bukitvidya Publication, this is the second book of Cindy Long, published under Bukitvidya Publications. Wikipedia publication was registered with the Ministry of Human Resource Development in 2020. So this is our second book, and Wikipedia publication comes under the Wikipedia Foundation. Under the foundation, we have a library running this year. We have about 2,000 books, and it's a free library. So for those who don't know about it yet, you can register yourself, get a library, and borrow books from the library. And Wikipedia Foundation also helps economically backward students. So anyone willing to donate can contact me, Santilong, or Aaron, or anyone. So that is about the Wikimedia Foundation. We will have a book signing and light refreshment will follow. So I request everyone to kindly join in the refreshment, and in the process of enjoying your coffee, you can also ask questions which you, if you weren't able to ask the question now, maybe you can ask them during the coffee time. Thank you all so much for being a part of this launch. It has been an immense pleasure having you all. I would request you all to kindly support our author by buying the book. Not just one, but many, as Christmas gifts for your friends and family. Thank you all so much again.